Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Vlog Media Breeze coming to you today to talk about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Their reunion was last night, and I am very glad it's over. And I actually can feel for Erica and all that she, on one side, is feeling. On the other hand, I cannot get down with her empathy, her lack of empathy, and with her narcissism. She is the quintessential narcissist, you guys. This is narcissism in progress. Her whole demeanor, her whole stance is she's not going to lose anything for anyone. And you guys, this is the kind of woman who will kill for money. Believe me when I tell you, she is the kind of woman who will take you out over money because that is what this whole thing boils down to. That is the topic of what all of this boils down to is how is she going to hang on to the money? That's what the tears are about. And let's get into it, okay? I want to tell you this morning, a lot of the news reports already are talking about her. Page Six, Entertainment Tonight, TMZ, they are all talking about her. Page Six has a title, and I'm not going to put up the title, but I will read it to you. It says Erika Jayne defends $14 million American Express bill during the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. Excuse me, I need to get some water. One moment. Okay. My apologies. I am so used to drinking so much water by this time in the morning, and it's been a busy morning, and I didn't get to drink as much water as I normally do. But normally by now, I've had at least about 40 ounces of water. And now I think my body's so used to it that it was saying, hey, where's the water? Um, so that's page six. It says Erika Jayne defends $14 million American Express bill during Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. Um, they go on to say maybe she should start keeping expense reports. And they have a play on words here. They have XXPEN and they have a dollar sign E and they have it in quotes in red, all caps. Okay, maybe she should start keeping expense reports. They go on to say Erika Jayne defended her exorbitant $14 million American Express tab on Wednesday night's final installment of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. The Bravo Celebrity 50 told host Andy Cohen and her castmates that the lofty credit card bill made public amid her that was made public amid her legal and financial woes with estranged husband Tom Girardi spanned over 12 years. So if you knock that down to $2 million per year, that's all pretty much what we're doing this year, she said, gesturing to her co stars. I mean, doing in this lifestyle. So she's saying that she and Tom only spent about $2 million per year. Now, it goes on to let us know, as you recall, Jane is being sued for $25 million by the trustee overseeing the bankruptcy case for Girardi's former law firm, Girardi and Keese. The pair has been accused of embezzling settlement money meant for Girardi's clients, including orphans, widows, and burn victims, to fund their high spending lifestyle and Jane's part time pop music career. And you all can go on and read it. It's in, if you Google page six, you will be able to find it. And it talks about the article. It talks about the reunion from last night. Um, I don't know if you guys have heard, but I believe the trustee is actually, yeah, it says that they are suing uh, them for the $25 million. So they have done an estimate of the amount of money that Tom actually had, and they believe that they have the money to pay off these victims. So there you have it. I digress because I only have read the articles. I have not really gone in depth researching it because I do work during the day, so I don't really have that kind of time. If I did, I would, and I would be on here every day reporting it and not in snippets. I don't know how some of these YouTubers report in snippets. It's like they are very desperate. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the reunion because it opens up with Andy asking all of the ladies who believes Erica did not know what Tom was doing financially. And as usual, they all chime in, "Oh, we believed her. We believed her. We believe she did not know what he was doing." Kyle, Renna, and Dorit, you can depend on them to chime in. Crystal actually has been quiet the entire reunion unless Andy has asked her a question or unless she had something to say, as in just now when she said to Erica, "Where is your anger towards him?" And Erica kinda she became very upset and abrupt with Crystal and told her, "Do you think I don't have anger for him? Do you think I'm not angry at him?" And a lot of people thought that that was a plausible question by Crystal, and I just thought it was a coward move because the question should be, why aren't you acknowledging the victims? Now, how she had she said that, had she said, why are you not formally acknowledging the victims, I could have got down with that with Crystal. But this thing about where's your anger towards him, everybody wants Erica to be angry towards him. Let's remember a husband and a wife have a very different relationship than people on the outside of that marriage. I'm not looking for Erica to be angry at Tom because Tom is her husband. And when I look at the entirety of the circumstances, her anger against Tom is really not that important. You can't force people to have an emotion that they don't have just because you think they should have it, Crystal. Just because you feel angry or just because that's something you would do in your relationship does not mean that that's something Erica is going to do in her relationship. I believe Erica is more angry at the fact that she can no longer be in the lifestyle she was in. And she's probably thinking, I've got to find me a wealthy man real quick because I got nothing else going for myself. She has nothing else going for her. She was on Broadway. That was a fluke. The girl is not an actress. And really she is not a singer. She loves to take her clothes off and show her white body. She thinks that that is something good to be able to do, is to get on stage and hit her crotch and show her body and be a stripper really on stage because that's what her entertainment is about, even on stage. And I am not interested in her being angry. I don't try to get people to have an emotion that I have just because I think they should have it. If you have that emotion, then you're going to have it, and I can connect with you based on that. My issue is her narcissism, her lack of empathy for the victims. And I believe that you can talk to people about that. At the same time, if they don't have it, it's not going to happen. We're not going to see her take responsibility. We're not going to do that. She's not that woman. She's not a high value, high quality woman. What you're looking at is someone who is very superficial, who on the outside likes to look glamorous, but on the inside, she's the devil. And that's just what it is. Um, Andy goes on to talk about how she lashes out at her castmates. And she says, "Absolutely, I'm lashing out." As if that's a good response to that. Absolutely, I'm lashing out at everyone. If you were being accused of doing all of these things, you would too. And Andy agrees with her. He goes, "Okay, yeah, absolutely." Um, I don't see where anyone is accusing Erica of anything. They have not accused her of anything. What has happened is the reality is she is a not a victim, but she is in a circumstance wherein she was married to a man who was embezzling funds. And this is just from my perspective. Again, it's my commentary. So the embezzlement of funds is one thing. If I'm the wife of an embezzler, I am going to ask my attorneys to provide me with a statement that represents the family and shows empathy for the victims. That's what I'm going to do. And for me, I'm going to be gung ho about doing that. The attorney cannot tell me that's not something that you can do because it'll look this way or look that way. Because as you can see, the public is asking for this. And generally, the public ends up being jurors in cases. So you want to appease the public in this way. Um, so she goes on to say that at Kyle's dinner, she was very controlled in what she said because um, I guess word had gotten back to her about how the other ladies were feeling and about the information that was being disseminated. So she felt very controlled in what she was saying. And, Andy says to her, "You just about bit Crystal's head off." And she goes on to make excuses for that. She keeps saying things like, "How do you think this makes me feel?" So every question Andy asked Erica, she was gaslighting him. This is called gaslighting at its finest. She was like, "How do you think this makes me feel?" He goes on to ask her, um, no, he goes on to ask the other ladies when it first came out that the divorce was a sham, if they also thought that the divorce was a sham. They said no, they didn't think the divorce was a sham. And then Dorit goes on to say, "Well, we are reading for the first time this article that addresses these alleged atrocities." I said, "No, the F she didn't." These women are flighty for real. These are low value women. This is what I have come to. The only ones on the stage who potentially are not low value are Garcelle, Sutton, and Crystal. Everybody else is low value, very low value. Kathy Hilton is only high value in her financial part. And uh people praise money. They praise money over God, which I don't even understand that. But to me, in all other aspects, Kathy is mediocre at best. But for Dorit to say alleged atrocities, that tells you the woman is not in the right mind. I'm not even going to say in her right mind because her mind could never be right coming out with something like that. Those atrocities, Dorit, are not alleged. They happened. And I'm trying to understand this thought process that everything the LA Times and other major newspapers around the nation writes about that are credible, that Erica thinks her one story is not credible. The LA Times got it wrong. A paper who is legally liable for getting things right got the Erika Girardi case wrong. I mean, make that mess make sense. Make that make sense. It doesn't. She's irresponsible. At one point, the show provided flashbacks of all the women at the meeting that Sutton had called, and we hear Kyle. This was my first time hearing Kyle's take on everything, and she's talking crap. She's saying she doesn't want her name mentioned in the paper with Erica's. Kyle is two-faced. And Kyle is my girl. I mean, I like her, and I think that people tend to forget. Let me just pause and tell you, Kyle is the reason that this show exists. You guys, you do know that. A lot of people love to put LVP up there as the queen. LVP is no queen. Put that to the side for real. She's a sneaky, vindictive woman. She is not a queen. And I'm not saying that Kyle is a queen, but Kyle is the one who introduced this show to Bravo, and Bravo brought it on air. And I just thought I would bring that out. So for that reason, she is the queen because she's still standing. She's still there. I didn't like the little episode that revealed her two-facedness because I don't know if this is just her understanding the assignment, and perhaps that's why she's trying to take sides with Erica because she wants Erica to stay on the show. Kyle understands the industry and she understands the assignment. I do believe that, but some of her moves, I can't tell if it's because she understands the assignment or if she is really feeling that way. Because they showed her at the meeting clearly talking crap about Erica. She said she didn't want her name mentioned in the paper with Erica's in this situation. But then whenever you see her facing Erica, she never says that. She puts it all off on Sutton. Even during certain episodes, she put it all off on Sutton saying things, and she wasn't saying things. And for that, I'm slightly disappointed in her. When I saw that episode last night, that was my first time seeing that because whenever they aired the episode, they did not show what Kyle had said. They only showed what Sutton was saying and they showed what Dorit had said. And then they showed Rena's expressions, which let us know that Rena was going to go right back and tell Erica. So Sutton should have left Rena out of that meeting too. And Erica had the audacity to ask them, "Why didn't you invite me to the meeting? I should have been at the meeting." No, you should not have been at the meeting. The women should have met without you because you are the culprit. And then they can bring you back into the meeting and talk about the discussion. Erica is the quintessential narcissist. She looks good on the outside. She likes the glamour on the outside, but inside she's the devil. She's a mean-spirited woman. She will kill for money. Allegedly, I have to say allegedly. But if you look at the description of this video, you'll see I have already put that the things here are allegedly and of my own opinion. Okay? Andy goes on to say, "Did any of you hear that Tom was having money problems, was having financial problems?" And Kyle says that she had heard something. And then Andy goes on to say that he and Kyle had heard that he was having financial problems from the same person. That person being Bethany Frankel from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, of Real Housewives of New York. Then Erica says to him, "Why didn't you tell me?" Erica, first of all, you're the one being interrogated. So how about just answering the questions? Sit there, be humble, don't get angry, and answer the questions. and answer them in a way that is classy. You have no class. You have no, it's expensive to be me. Don't nobody want to be you. I didn't even want to be you when you made the song before I knew all of this was happening. I am on a rant about Erika Jayne today, following last night's episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Reunion, Part 4, Season 11. I am on a rant about that because her whole demeanor was unacceptable. I'm glad they aired it because it allowed me to see fully the person that I had really been trying to empathize with myself. Because as you know, in my last video, I told you that I have been on the receiving end where the majority have been against me in certain situations in my life. And I have actually been the innocent one. So, you guys, where the majority rules, it's not always righteous. And I know that. Therefore, I tried to empathize with Erica in some of my videos. However, last night's reunion, I'm done. When you're sitting there and you cannot even be a decent person and answer the questions without anger, and at the end, I hope I don't forget because sometimes I say I'll be in the middle of these commentaries and I'll say I'm going to do something at the end, and when the end comes, I'm like done. I move on and forget to answer it, and I don't know it until I've gone back and looked at the video myself. So let me go ahead and tell you this anyway. Let me go ahead and turn to the end of my notes and just tell you at one point um in the show last night, Erica described herself as vicious, angry, and one other term she used that I didn't quite catch. That's what she said about herself. So what did Maya Angelou say? Well, she said if they show you who they are, believe them. But at one point, she also said if people tell you who they are, believe them too. So she's vicious and she's vile and she's angry. That's what Erica is right now. Who does she think she is to feel that way? Right now, she should be feeling very empathetic and very humble and a wanting to provide relief to people that she really played a role in, whether it was innocent or not. She played a role in their demise, furthering their demise, because as the victims of the plane crash, they had lost family members. Some lost parents. That's how they were orphans. Parents lost children. People lost family members. And those people were never appeased. So I would expect her to feel differently, but instead she's angry because she's afraid that she's going to lose her money. She's angry that she is losing her money. So when Andy asked that question, okay, let me see where I got to, you guys. I went off on a tangent and I turned the page looking for something else. And let's see here. Where did it go to? Okay, here it is about Tom's money problems. um, when she asked, "Why didn't you all tell me?" Every question that Andy asked, Erica had a question for him. Well, why didn't you do this? And why is this? And how am I supposed to do this? And what is this? So he would ask her a question and she would go into her seven W's and a how. I mean, five W's and a why or a how, whatever it is. I can't remember. She would ask him questions, in other words. That's called gaslighting at its finest. If you ask me a question and I turn around and ask you a question, that's gaslighting. That, that's putting you on fire, holding you to the task that unjustifiably makes me gaslighting you. So, um, Andy, so they go on, they start talking about the waterproof mascara. Remember when Camille wrote in page 6 that Erika always wore expensive mascara because she didn't want it to run, and she had been on location when she was filming with the ladies, and they were in areas where there was ocean and water and swimming, and her mascara never ran. And suddenly that day, sitting with Kyle on the stoop, her mascara was running. So this was her response to this. Her mascara was running because she has allergies. I'm pausing because if if you have allergies, then why is it that the mascara on previous locations when you were in the water didn't run? And then she goes on to gaslight Camille. I don't need anyone's pity, anyone's sympathy, and I don't need anyone's 2 cents who was a former who is no longer on the show. I don't need the 2 cents of anyone who is no longer on the show. Talking about Camille. A lot of us are not on that show, but you're getting our 2 cents, honey. You're going to get it because this is the spirit of society is that whenever someone has been wronged, the spirit rises in the multitude of people, depending on how deep that wrong is. That is why when we hear certain news stories that there's public outrage, that is the good spirit of society wanting the bad spirit to pay for what has happened. And that's what's going on here with Erica. Society is angry about the fact. eh, Listen, we are very fragile beings. Our bodies are fragile. The Bible tells us how fragile we are. In fact, our mind is stronger than our body. And that's why in death, you will see people having priests and have other people come in to read scripture to them when they think they're going to die because their mind and the way that they are thinking is stronger than what is about to be revealed about the body, which is how weak and fragile it is, and how it can bend and it can break and it can decay. So, what we are seeing are when we heard about the fact that Tom had embezzled this money from people whose lives could have been made better, even though it would not have brought back their loved ones from death, even though Ruiz Gomez would not be able to get his body back to the way it was before the burn, he would not be stressed from having to pay hospital bills, and he could had his body rebuilt perhaps to something that was greater through technology with that money. And so we are looking at that as Erica is is not doing what is right by society, whether she was responsible, directly responsible or not. She's the wife of the man, and husbands and wives are always linked. That is our perception of a husband and a wife. They are always linked in matters. If the wife does something, we are going to question not just the wife, but the husband, and vice versa. They are unified as one. So no one's saying that she did this directly, but we're saying that you're the wife. Can you at least represent the family and be empathetic? And we want to see that empathy, but not this bitc, not her. She's evil. And people, you need to sometimes, it ain't that complicated. It really is not that complicated. The woman's evil. It's okay to say that because she's evil. It's quite like um the issue that happened with the avatar over on the other channel, all about the tea. We did not like what she did to Ples from the get-go. And I was an avid viewer of that channel. That channel was going places. She was doing some really creative things over there, guys. She really was. She was the first who really uh, created a panel. If you will notice, now you have panels all over YouTube. Everyone's trying to create a panel. Where do you think they get that from? They got that from her. But she could not do that one righteous move. She could not do a public apology and appease the good person that she brought down. Y'all, that's evil. That's evil rising above and letting you know what it is, revealing itself. And you can't get society to change the way they think about you until you repent. So at some point, if you want people to feel differently, if you want to regrow, you're going to have to change and repent and do the right thing. It ain't never too late to do the right thing, by the way. I'm talking from experience. It ain't never too late to do the right thing. And sometimes you just have to say, you have to weigh your worth. And I'm not talking in terms of dollars and cents. I'm talking about you have to weigh who you are, what you are worth as a person. Because once you humble yourself and do the right thing, life gets easier. Trust me, it does. I digress. I just had to go there because Erica pissed me off last night. Really pissed me off. Okay. So we go on and they talk about when Garcelle made the comment to the group about Tom calling Erica every day. And Andy asked about that. And Erica was mic'd whenever she made that comment to Garcelle. And who was with them? Was it Crystal? It was Crystal, I think, that was with them. Perhaps it was Garcelle, Erica, and one other person, one other lady. They were walking back to Kyle's home there in La Quinta when Erica told them he calls me every day. So when Garcelle repeated the comment amid the ladies, there should not have been anything wrong with that. But Erica didn't want her. She said last night she didn't want people to have the impression that she was still with Tom. I well, that's as honest as it gets. I will give her kudos on that one because even at the time, we were all thinking she just doesn't want people to know she still talks to him. That's what most of us were thinking. Which it's okay. If you're amid a divorce, it's okay to still be talking to your husband, especially if you've known him 20 years. How do you cut off someone and not talk to them again after knowing them and being in the household with them for 20 years? How do you do that? That's not easy to do because you are kind of addicted to one another. You are really spiritually connected living that long and, doing other things as husband and wife that long. So when you leave, there will be some things that will come to mind that you may have to reach back out and talk to him about. But she is so deceptive that she didn't want people to even think that. When the reality is, we would have thought that was normal. We would have been thinking, "Hey, well, that's normal. They were married this amount of time. They're talking." And I just, I want to get to Rena here too, because if you notice in the title of this video, oh, let me before I get to that, let me say this. Um, Andy asked her some question that made her say that he asked her what did she say to him when she talked to him, and she said that she asked him how he could put her in the position of being amid millions of lawsuits, millions of dollars in lawsuits. And I said, I I I I don't believe that. I'm one of those who believes she knew something and she may have been ignoring it, hoping it would go away. But inside of that household, she knew something was off. You mean to tell me you never read you know how we are, okay? Ladies, girls, you know how we are. We will read a text message. We will read a letter. We will see something in the house that makes us want to say, "Hey, what's this?" So for her not to have known anything, I just do not believe it. And I would think if it were me in that situation with my husband, I would probably be like, I would definitely be trying to protect them, definitely. So I am going to say, okay, even though it's hard to say, if I had to answer a question, I would go to him and say, okay, so how do you want me to answer this when it's answered? I would say to him, I would like to say, I had an idea because this was happening, but I wasn't sure. And he might say, okay, that's okay, say that. So she could have even done that with Tom. I don't know. Maybe she was afraid because there were scenes when Tom and Erica were having a meal with Lisa Vanderpump and her husband one time, and they were having a conversation, and he reprimanded her in amid that conversation. And I thought, wow, what is going on with him talking to her like that? And this was before we even knew all of this stuff right here. And Erica seemed, at that moment to be submissive to him. And even last year when they were at her house and he was talking about, John Wayne or someone owning the home, and um, Erica and Garcelle said to him, you are a great storyteller. And then Erica looked at her and said, you get it now? You get it? I mean, people are always asking me, and I'm like, well, you have to meet the guy. I thought that was cute. I loved that exchange. I liked that moment with them, which kind of makes you sad that they're not going to be together anymore. What is this? Dana Brickish, you're saying you didn't like her comment about if this was Potomac or Atlanta, her meanness or being angry would be justified. Um, I think that she was speaking the truth, though. For me, I cannot get upset. I've learned over my lifetime not to be upset about everything that someone white or Caucasian says about a black organization or black people, because then what happens is we're now shutting them down and saying you can't say anything at all, when I really do want to know your thoughts about certain topics. I really do. I do not believe that Erica is a racist. I just don't. Do I believe she's a narcissist? Yes, but I do not believe that what she says has anything to do with being racially biased. She strikes me as a person who appreciates embracing that. Um, yeah, you're right. She said in Beverly Hills, uh, they are so sensitive to things that you can just freely do in other places. So I really agree with her on that. And this is my commentary about last night. It's not this is just my commentary about last night. This is not my overall view of Erica. I'm just talking about what was this is a television show that I provide reviews on. And so I digress about that. I want to go ahead and say, I want to get to Rena because Rena is the most annoying person. She is annoying. And if you watch her nonverbals, if you get an opportunity to watch the reunion again, I would say turn it off for an hour or even go over to Amazon and watch it and just watch Rena's nonverbals. You know that bag of paraphernalia that she had? Okay, I digress. Okay, remember a few seasons back when she had that bag of items? Just think about that and then watch her nonverbals on the reunion last night. She's annoying. Andy asked the girls, Andy starts bringing up the $20 million that was transferred to EJ Global. And the LA Times did write about this. As he's talking about that, Kathy's putting on lipstick, which is another contention of mine. People just like this woman for her money. Stop esteeming money, you guys. Stop it right now. Because Kathy has a tick. Okay? Kathy is not all there, in my humble opinion. Does she make some good points? Sure. From time to time, she said a few phrases that I could agree with. But this thing that people are, oh, she's so quirky, she's so funny, oh, this and that, and let me praise and worship her. No, stop, please. Stop worshiping people based on their pocketbook. And you saw in the last episode how uh, she protects her and Rick. She protects that. Andy was asking about gifts, or was that this episode? Andy was asking about gifts, and Kathy let him know, oh, we don't do stuff like that for each other anymore. Well, they don't need to. They've done all of that, right? They've been there, done that. At the same time, even if they do still do those things, she's not going to tell you that. It's just so people can come breaking in her house and, you know, stealing from her or targeting her and her family. She's not going to tell them that. That was a smart move on her part. Oh, Rick and I, we don't do that anymore. Whereas even if they do, she's not going to tell you because she's smart that way. That I do like about her. But these other things about her, people just falling for her, or she brought so much to the show. If it was not Kathy Hilton and they brought on any other housewife in Beverly Hills that was not well known, people wouldn't be saying that. They wouldn't be wanting to have her on the show. But let's get into this $20 million that was transferred to EJ Global because Erika denied it. He starts talking about the fact that um, the people are believing that she has more money and that the money is hidden. The thing that really stood out to me was when she said, "Not 20 million, though." That was her immediate response. Not 20 million, though. And then she goes, "My lawyer wrote to page 6 to acknowledge that, but somehow that doesn't seem to get reported." So if page 6 is not being fair and balanced, then I would have a problem with that. And it's possible that they are trying to steer the story one way, but if it used to be, and I know this is not effective anymore, but it used to be if a newspaper told one story and someone else came out, they had to tell the other one. But nowadays they don't have to do that. They'll tell one story and they'll steer it all the way in their direction or however they desire, when that is so unfair. There used to be a law or something wherein you had to, if you talked about one side of an issue, you had to talk about the other. And it was in politics as well. I forgot what it was called. But if you had one politician on air talking about this, and there was another politician who was in disagreement, you had to bring them both on. And it didn't have to be at the same time. It could be at the same time, but it could be at other times. But now that's why you have these very um, uh, one-sided views in the media, and how they are able to steer a story in their direction, because and that's all they will report on all day long until your ears are tired. Your ears are tired because they're not giving the other side. They're not giving the other view. And when they do give the other view, it is skewed. Or in some circumstances, and I've heard this, and I know people in the media, they will pay someone to come on who really doesn't jive with that view, but they'll pay them to be a talking point. So I don't even trust the media. That's why I just watch YouTube. I'm like, you know what? I'm so sick of all of these outlets thinking that they are so credible, and they are really one sided. So, this is what's going on here. This is what Erica's saying. She's saying, page six wrote about um, the same thing that the LA Times wrote about, and that is that 20 million went into her account, but then her lawyer wrote to them to dispute it, and that part was not reported. That is what she's saying. I don't know if it was reported or not. I didn't pay attention when I read the story. The fact that most of us are only thinking about the 20 million, I mean, that's the thing we're focused on, tells me that even if the other side was reported and documented, enough of it wasn't reported and documented, because we're very focused on the 20 million that went into EJ Global, which was Erica's company. Um, Andy goes on to say, the money we've seen you spending was money that was owed to others. And so he says that to let her know that that money needs to be paid to the victims. And how are the victims now going to get that money? And Erica goes, if that was proven, does that mean every lawyer, secretary, and others need to have their money clawed back as well? Erica, n- oh my goodness, she is not getting it, you guys. She's not getting it. She is not getting it. She is not. No, it does not mean that the secretaries and the other attorneys have to pay back the money as well. No, it was Girardi and Keese. And Girardi's name is first, which means he's the principal owner. So he's the final say so in where the money goes. I'm moving on from that. Um, Andy goes on to talk about Tom's cognitive impairment, because he tells Erica that the public also believes that she was trying to manipulate the narrative by saying that Tom had a cognitive impairment and that he had the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, and that it started about 3 years ago. Well, what does she do? She denied that. Every question that he posed, she either gaslit him with another question, or she denied it. Or she talked about how angry she was about the fact that people thought that about her. It was just, it's a good reunion for therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists to analyze. It really is. I am noticing some behaviors here, you guys, and it's the same behavior. You know you have the same behavior, right? Um, at any rate, um, Rena goes on to tell her how smart she is. Uh, Rena says, "You're smart. You wouldn't be here. if if uh if that were happening. I can't recall what the question was to that. Um, what was it? Andy asked about something about Erica, and Rena jumps in and tells her how smart she was and that she wouldn't be here if she believed that. I think it had to do with Tom's cognitive impairment. So next he goes to Sutton and he says to Sutton, Sutton, you said that a partner had left Girardi and Keith a few years ago upon learning that Tom was doing something wrong in the company. And then this is what gets to me about Sutton is she backpedals. And and I really I can support her being the initiator of bringing all of this out because she really did that this season. Okay, we really liked that someone was holding Erica's feet to the fire. So Andy asked her about her comment about the partner who left the firm, and Sutton immediately backpedaled. She says, "Oh, that was a rumor I had heard, and I don't know the name." She didn't want to say the name, and Erica says, "Well, Sutton, you knew enough to talk about it. So who was it?" And then Dorit at some point intervenes and says, Erica, we didn't know about the lawsuits. And Erica, she gave it to Dorit. I was so glad to see this. And you guys know I liked Dorit until she did this thing against Garcelle. And one thing about us as Black people, as a people, when we see white people behave a certain way against us, we know it's racism. We do. We know that there is a little bit of racism in it sometimes. And so what happened when we saw Dorit and Lisa going against Garcelle the way that they were, um, we immediately saw what was really going on because the divide is what Garcelle was doing was right. So the fact that you're going to come against her for doing what's right, what is your reason for coming against her for doing what's right? Because if you were doing it for the moral value, you would be on Garcelle's side. Because what Garcelle was doing was calling out Dorit for being two-faced. So for Lisa to jump in that, and then at the end, we see she's saying, "Oh, we can't be two-faced." But earlier, you were just defending Dorit for being two-faced. So whenever the messages get misconfigured in that way, we attribute that to racism. Because what is the other reason? What is the other reason for Lisa Rinna, who has known Garcelle for 20 years, to suddenly jump ship with Dorit, who really was being two-faced, and Garcelle calls her out on her two-facedness, and Rinna stays there. But then in the end of the show, and of last night's show, she is the one who brings up, "Oh, we can't be two-faced." Lisa Rinna is a racist. There, I said it. That's it. Lisa Rinna is a racist, and Garcelle didn't know she was dealing with a racist. Because you people, okay, y'all trick us sometimes. Y'all trick us. Yeah, and I can bring up a whole lot of tricks, including the little Black boy that got murdered by a bunch of white people the other month, and they still haven't done time, and the police are not doing anything to try to find out why they were the last ones to see him. He thought they were his friends. They were his neighbors. They lived across the street. He played with their son. And he goes, you know, how parents do. "Oh, let's take your son here. Oh, yeah, he's friends with him. Let's let him go." He goes and he doesn't come back. He's dead. So I'm just throwing that out there to use it as an example to some of the other racial issues and the reasons that we call white people racist. That's one of them. So in this show, whenever you are being two-sided, and we all know that one side has a high value to it, what's the reason that you're not on the high value side? Why are you over there on that side And then in 2 minutes later, you're talking about the high value. I see you guys leaving. You don't want to talk about racism. That's fine. Hey, that you don't like what is it, critical race theory. Listen, your ancestors enslaved our ancestors. The sooner you deal with that, the better you will feel, because then you will not feel like I think what happens is sometimes the W's feel like they are what do you want to say? They don't want to deal with the demons of the past, even though they weren't directly the demons. They don't want to feel like they were directly the demons. I can have a whole show on that. Let me digress and move on. But this is what is happening here, though. Okay. Um, Dorit says, we never knew about the lawsuits. And Erika turns around and tells Dorit, but we didn't know about your lawsuits either. Erika also goes on to say that she feels like at the Christmas dinner, she didn't do enough. She thought that the Christmas dinner should have been the last time she needed to talk about it during the show, because she had answered some questions, but she found herself talking about it every other episode. And this is the part when Rena says, listen, if we're going to get together, talking behind people's backs isn't the way. So this is the part that I'm talking about where Rena went against Garcelle for doing what Rena just said herself. I digress. I don't want to lose too many of you. I've already lost enough of you talking about race. You've got to talk about race. We're Black, we're here. People have discriminated against us. You have to talk about it at some point. Okay. Garcelle says to Lisa Rinna, why were you pushing for Sutton to say things that would hurt Erika then? And Rinna, her explanation is that she wasn't pushing for Sutton to say things that would hurt Erika, that she was pushing for Sutton to just be honest. I didn't understand Rena. I'm not going to try to explain her. They go on, and Andy asked them a question that a viewer had, and actually the viewer didn't even have a question. The viewer called Dorit duplicitous, Kyle a kiss ASS, and somebody else another name. And those women were behaving that way because I'm just going to be clear with you again on race. White women don't like to hold other white women accountable. If they see another white woman crying, they're like, oh, she's crying. They don't think about the reality of what is going on. They just think about the fact, oh, she's crying and we don't want to hurt her feelings. That bee need to cry. She needs to cry. I don't feel bad for Erika's tears. I don't feel sorry for her. They are annoying. But as you all need to hold her accountable. From what I understand, her and Kyle, after the show aired, after that show last night aired, her and Kyle, right after that show, had some words. And that's why I think even to this day, they're not really talking. So we're coming to the end here. They talked to Erika about the comment she made to Sutton at the table where she said, I'm going to come after you. She says that I'm coming for you. And she tried to manipulate that statement into saying that it meant that because Sutton has turned on her now, that everyone on the cast has a turn when they're going through something, and that when it's Sutton's turn to go through some mess, she's not going to be supportive of Sutton as well. We all know good and darn well that is not what you meant, Erika. I digress. You meant I'm coming for you because you are a bully. The devil is a bully. The devil has multiple characteristics that are all bad because they never mean anyone else any good. What the devil means is to take you down with the devil if you're not already there. And Lisa Rinna's already there. So she doesn't have to work a lot with Lisa Rinna. Not once did any of those ladies call Erika a bully when she was threatening Sutton. And Andy brings that out. I like that he brought that out. Garcelle says she feels like Erika should have, Garcelle says she feels like she should have intervened and said, hey, enough. No, if I'm going to intervene, I'm going to call you what you are. I'm going to say, look here, you are sitting here saying to Sutton that you're coming for her. And Erika, I have to call you out on this one. That's a bully. That's a bully. What you just did was you bullied her. You're trying to tell another grown woman that they can't have a conversation with you about something they've heard, or you're coming for them. And Sutton is not even talking to you in those terms. So why are you bullying her? That's what I would have been saying. I would not have been one of these people. All right, enough. Enough. I've had enough. I'm going to tell you what my enough is. Okay? Um then Erika calls Sutton. Let me see here. No, Erika tells Sutton that she didn't threaten her, and Erika says, I'm sorry, Sutton says, oh God, what happened in this statement? Okay, it has something to do with the difference between a liar and a threat. Erika says to Sutton, if you call me a liar, I'm coming for you. Because Sutton revealed to us that Erika also told her in that moment that she was coming for her and her family, and that was a threat. And so Erika says, well, if you call me a liar, I'm coming for you and yours too. Listen, guys, there's a difference in me saying you're a liar and then you threatening me, threatening to come for me and my family for calling you a liar. Sutton didn't even say the word liar. Sutton, in a dignified way, told her that the stories were not matching up. So she didn't say you were lying, Erika, and you threatened her. It's not the same thing. You see how she gaslights? She turns the whole situation so that she is the person in the right, and she's wrong. Andy sat there and coddled Erika. He's like, you're a piece of work. I cannot take his microaggression because it took my mind right back to last year's Potomac reunion when he didn't say that to Monique. When Monique said, "Oh no, I don't need that money," he didn't say, "You're a piece of work." You know, he wasn't that nice to Monique Samuels, but Erica can sit here and behave the way she behaved last night, and he embraced that. And you're not going to tell me she didn't know the questions beforehand. She knew them. The LA Times is absolutely correct. I believe the LA Times. I do not believe Erika. Erika made excuses for each question. She took zero responsibility for the fact that she, as the wife, should have empathized and apologized to the victims, or at least acknowledged their pain. And in terms of her divorce, you guys, I believe it was twofold in that she wanted out of the marriage, but she liked the money even while she was in the marriage. I think she at one point may have wanted out, but liked the money. So she was willing to deal with it. And whenever all of this happened, even though it was an unfortunate circumstance for her, this was her opportunity to get out of the marriage. And that's why it's so easy for her to divorce him. It's her opportunity to get out. He goes on to try to hold Rinna responsible uh, for what she did to Yolanda, Denise, and Kim, because Rinna had just made that statement about being, two-faced. She had just made the statement saying, listen, if we're going to get together, talking behind people's backs isn't the way. And he immediately held her accountable. And she goes, oh, well, I know more than anyone. No, you don't. And I didn't believe any of Rena's apology to them. I did believe what she said about Kim. She said that she did not have the right to interfere the way that she did, but that she hoped that it helped in some way, but she would have gone about it differently. So she hopes that what she did to Kim helped the circumstance. Um, this is what Erika said about herself. Remember earlier I was trying to come up with a description that she said how she was feeling. She said she felt vicious, hurt, and beat down. That's how she described herself when she was talking about Lisa Vanderpump. And she says that at least she stayed, she showed up. Lisa Vanderpump didn't even show up. So Lisa Vanderpump is a coward, which I agree with that. I'm not a Lisa Vanderpump fan. I think Lisa is conniving and vindictive. I really do. And so at one point, Erika was telling them, can they please back her the F up on what she's saying? And that's when Andy said she was a piece of work. I just now saw my own writing on that. Um, she starts to recount her son's auto accident and Tom's auto accident. With Tom's auto accident, supposedly they had been talking at 9 p.m. the night before, but for some reason she tried to call him again. He wasn't answering. She tried to call him. He wasn't answering. Then at 6 a.m. in the morning, the phone rang and it was Tom. So she was trying to get in. She's saying that she had been trying to get in touch with him, and that's the night of the accident. This is like the fourth story she's told about that same accident, guys. Fourth story. Then when she recounted, whenever Andy asked her to recount her son's accident, she didn't want to get into it. He asked her, why was it snowing where your son lives in, Pasadena? And I think it's Pasadena where he lives. At any rate, he lives in California in some place where it never snows, okay? And she said she's not going to get into that. Andy goes on to say, they are equating everything you do to the victims. They're saying, look, there are victims. And she says the best way she can serve the victims is by participating in the court process. That is not the best way. I digress. Everything I said earlier applies right here. Everything I said earlier about Erika applies right here. That is not the best way you can serve the victims. You have to go to court. You're not serving the victims by going to court, honey. The courts are requiring you to go to court. That you're not serving them. Serving someone is voluntary. You're being forced to go to court. That's not serving the victims. It would serve the victims if you didn't have to go to court. Dorit then compliments her again. But you can say that, my dear, meaning you can say you can serve the victims by participating in the court process. You can say that. That was a beautiful thing you just said. Wasn't a daggone thing beautiful about what Erika just said. These women are disgusting. They're disgusting. So Andy asked all the women if their questions had been answered. Um, so he goes around and evidently their questions had been answered. And one of the things Erika did say at the very end, she said this, and I wrote it word for word. She said, their legitimate claims need to be taken care of. That's the best thing she said all season. Their legitimate claims need to be taken care of. That's the best line that she has said all season, period. I want to talk about Kathy real briefly. I'm not a fan of Kathy, and I don't care who knows it. Kathy apologized to Garcelle, saying that she was not allowed to come to the dinner because she had to do a 3-day, what do you call it? She had to stay in 3 days due to COVID. First of all, the time period for staying in for COVID is not 3 days. is 7. It's 7 to 14 days. So for her to say she had to do a 3-day stay in for COVID, that's a lie, I believe. Because when you look back at Garcelle's dinner, whenever Kyle is talking about the reason that Kathy didn't show up at the dinner, Kyle says something came up with one of her, and that's what Kyle said. But she didn't get to finish the sentence because there was an interruption from either some of the ladies or Garcelle. Someone was interrupting. But Kyle said that Kathy couldn't be at the dinner because something came up with one of her. So it was one of her something. That doesn't sound like um, that she didn't attend the dinner because of COVID, because Kyle would have said, well, they said she's having to what do you call it? Hibernate. What is the word that they gave us? She's having to stay in because of COVID. That would have been easy enough. But something else came up with Kathy because of one of her something that Kyle didn't get to finish. Andy asked them about their final thoughts. He goes around to Crystal. Crystal says that this has absolutely been uh, one of the best years of her life. And then it gets to Dorit, and he tells Dorit, hey, you're a fashionista, you're this, you're a chatterbox. Uh, what is it that you want to take away from this? And she says, chatterbox, or chatterbox is her thing. Okay. So they make some jokes about that. Lisa Rinna says that she is glad that she and Garcelle got to have that exchange. I don't even get it. A lot of times, whenever when two people are having an exchange, a lot of times I can connect to whatever's going on between them, and it can give me a certain, you know, emotional connection to them. That exchange that Lisa Rinna was talking about between her and Garcelle, I had zero emotional connection. I don't even know what the freak she's talking about. But Garcelle accepted it because Garcelle, quite frankly, is a weak Black woman. Um, next, what? Next, they Sutton says that the thing she would have done differently is how she handled the situation with Crystal and Race, and she would do that differently. Um, Garcelle, I can't remember what she said. Oh, Garcelle said that she now feels unified with the women. And she says she doesn't know why that is, but now she does feel a sense of uh, oneness with them. And so that tells me how weak she is right there. Garcelle, you can go. Bye. Next, that's when Kathy apologized, I think, for the thing with Garcelle that I've already told you about. As for Kyle, Andy sometimes will ask leading questions, and he asked Kyle if she felt the responsibility to hold things together for the women. And Kyle said, yes, she does feel that responsibility because whenever debates happen, like the ones between Erika and Sutton, that it's quite uncomfortable. And she feels the need to kind of make things come together and kind of make them reconnect on a better level. And with that being said, that's it. That's it. This was a long one, you guys, for me. This was a long one because I really wanted to hit every point that I could hit in this reunion. So I knew that this would be a long-winded review. And I'm sorry if I talked your ears out. Only one person put anything in the comments. And I am beginning to wonder about this process here because I think that this person is also a troll who has changed their name and their photo. I really do. And because it's the same behaviors. It is the same behaviors. I digress and I uplift God. And I wanna thank you for being subscribers of the channel. For those of you who are here and are subscribers, if you're not, please subscribe, click the like button and the notifications bell, and, we will see you in the next one. Thank you. Many blessings to you.